Good morning, Mets fans, and welcome to a Thursday edition of Driving with Mr. Met. I am Mr. Met, and despite the weather being pleasant, it was not such a pleasant day yesterday. The Mets dropped their rubber game against the Florida Marlins, Miami Marlins, whatever the hell their name is, in embarrassing fashion, as they typically do, wasting once again another Jacob deGrom gem, and finding themselves heading into a really rough road trip on a negative as opposed to as a positive. The last video I recorded was Monday. It was before this series with the Marlins, and I believe that I had said the Mets have got to take 2 out of 3, if not sweep. And heading into that series, they were on pace. At the start of the series, rather, they were on pace to, or they had a 4-1 record on the homestand at the time. So they win the first game, pitched by Jason Vargas, who, by the way, pitched his best game as a Met, hands down. Yes, it was against the Marlins, but it was a good game nonetheless, and Vargas deserves credit for accepting his time off, if you will, finding himself and pitching a really good game. So the Mets win Monday. Tuesday, Zach Wheeler pitched extremely well. Wheeler was good once again, deserving of a win. The defense let him down behind him, and the Mets lost that game. If the Mets are going to lose one of the next 2 after the Vargas win, it was going to be the Wheeler start. But last night was abysmal. deGrom lowers his ERA to a National League best 1.54 with another 7 shutout innings of stellar work out of the gate. deGrom is on pace to have a terrific season. Cy Young caliber numbers he's putting up, but he doesn't have the wins to show for it. Now, he has 4 wins on the season, should have at least 8, if not 9, because he's pitched so well. And it'd be interesting to see what Jake could do win-wise if he were on a good team. And I said it. Right now, the Mets are not a good team. And there was a quote on Twitter last night that said something like, playoff teams do not lose 2 out of 3 to the Marlins. And I responded to that, I don't think the Mets are a playoff team. I truly do believe that that is the sad reality, that the Mets are not a playoff team. Playoff teams who have aces like Jacob deGrom do not lose those starts. And I've been saying this from like the first week of the season. The Mets cannot afford to lose games started by Jacob deGrom and Noah Syndergaard while the rest of the rotation is in flux. Now, things are settling up a little bit in the rotation. Vargas had a good start. I'm not getting ahead of myself, right? He had 1 good start. I've long believed that he would be fine. He just needs to get himself into a rhythm. He's getting there. Matz and Wheeler both have been serviceable, a little bit more dependable. Wheeler more so than Matz, at the very least, just to give you length. But even still, you can't be losing games when your ace goes out there and throws up 7 shutout innings. And everybody that's blaming Mickey Callaway for last night, saying you can't bring Familia into a close game like that, honestly, shut up and disappear. Delete yourself. Because you have no business on Twitter talking about the Mets when you have the brain capacity of a rock. Jeurys Familia is the Mets closer. What should Callaway have done? Brought in A.J. Ramos? Would that have been a more appropriate move last night? The bottom line is, and I had the same gripe with people who bitched about Terry Collins, the players have to do their jobs. Period. The manager's in a position to put them in the best position they have to win and give the team and the player the best chance to succeed. Bringing in Jeurys Familia to protect a one-run lead was the right call. Familia cannot do what he did last night. He cannot afford to melt down against the Marlins. Jerry's had a good season, but he's not been great. There was a post on Mets blog a couple of days ago that talked about how he's been quietly dominant, and I don't agree. I don't think he's been quietly anything. He's been the same Familia that we've come to dread. I've often thought of him as Armando Benitez. I really have. And Ramos, don't even get me started. Ramos is like Benitez incarnate because of his affection for walks. But it seems like with Familia, you can tell really early in an appearance whether he's got it or not. And last night, you could tell that he didn't have it. And unfortunately, the Mets lose as a result. The Mets lose a game they should have won. Now, talking about the pitching and talking about Familia and talking about protecting that lead, let's talk about that lead. Let's talk about the fact that the Mets had only been able to muster one run against the Miami Marlins. Not taking anything away from Dan Straley, who pitched a good game last night, nor Caleb Smith the night before, who pitched very well. The bottom line is this Mets offense is so freaking terrible. Jay Bruce has got to pick up some slack here. I was listening to the radio broadcast last night. Howie Rose mentioned something about last year Jay Bruce was 17th in the majors in RBIs, or tied for 17th. And this year, at this point, he's like 168th because Jay Bruce just is not making any offensive contact whatsoever. His plate appearances are not very good. They're offensive, in fact. And the Mets need him in Cespedes' absence to pick up some of this slack. Conforto's not really Conforto yet. Joey Batista was a sort of a white flag pickup, which I don't disagree with. I mean, for league minimum, bring him in, that's fine. Twitter had a good time with that the other day. My favorite one was something about the 2018 Mets have all these guys who in 2008 were really great. The 2028 Mets are going to feature Anthony Rizzo and Manny Machado and all these guys that are great today and are going to be washed up in 2028. I thought that was kind of clever and funny, but the bottom line is this is not the decision, this is not the preference that this team obviously wants itself to look like. It's a matter of necessity. The team is basically flatlined offensively. They've mustered 4 runs against the Marlins in 3 games. Come on, do something. And I'm at the point now where I almost feel like you need a shot in the arm, and maybe it's Peter Alonso. Maybe Peter Alonso should make the jump from AA to the majors. Maybe he's ready, but he is a Mets prospect, so there's no way he's ready. No way the Mets are going to find like an Ozzie Albies or Ronald Acuna Jr. or someone who's going to just show up in the bigs and Gleyber Torres and start hitting, like a major leaguer is supposed to do. No Mets prospect does that. That just doesn't happen for us. So, the Mets begin a 4-game series tonight in Milwaukee after what was probably a pretty miserable flight last night. The Brewers have the best record in the National League. And the Mets will follow that game up with a 3-game set, or that series up rather, with a 3-game set in Atlanta against a team that has the second best record in the National League. So this has the makings of a brutal road trip. 7 games. I think the Mets have got to be eyeing a 3-4 road trip. That's got to be their goal. I'd love for it to be better, but I don't think it's possible with this team right now. So 3-4 is what I think the team should be shooting for. If they can somehow escape 4-3, count your blessings. I mean, the Brewers are really good. The Braves are really good. The Mets, not so good. There is some semblance of reinforcement on its way. Kevin Plawecki began his rehab assignment last night, so hopefully he'll be ready to join the team soon. I don't know that it matters. The guy they need to get back and healthy and 100% is Yoenis Cespedes, because he drives this offense. And until Cespedes gets back and Jay Bruce does something beyond flying weakly out to left field or grounding into the shift, this team's not going to go anywhere. But let's see what happens on this 4-game set rather in Milwaukee. I will be back tomorrow to recap tonight's game, where Stevie Matz will try to start and pitch more than 4 innings to start the game. So we'll see how that works out. Until then, thanks for watching. It's much appreciated. Follow me on Twitter at Mr_Met. And as always, let's go Mets. Oh.